Hi everyone and welcome on the Toxic Family Podcast. I'm Zsuzsanna, the host, an inner child coach. This is episode 3 and the title is I'm Too Worthless to Heal and part 1. This is actually a true story of someone, and I'm going to read first her story. And then digging deep into it will take for sure 2 parts. So this is part 1. I will give you my insights. And then in the second part, I will talk about the possibilities of healing with an inner child coach. So here's the letter or the story. I've been working with a trauma therapist and I'm in a recovery program to deal with certain addictions. Procrastination is a huge issue for me and it's difficult to focus and concentrate on my healing. I live in self-isolation, fear and in fear, and I entertain suicidal ideas. My therapist says that it's not possible to heal without self-compassion and forgiveness, but I have no idea what those are. I also don't trust or feel myself safe with anyone. My therapist tries to guide me to repair my inner child, but it's alien for me. My motivation, discipline, self-esteem, and self-confidence are 0. Everything tells me that I'm not worthy of healing. I'm terrified of facing the pain, and I freeze. I just want to give up. Where shall I begin? I can play, but when it comes to adulting and relationships, I just can't do it. I don't have the emotional maturity. So this woman, I know that she's a woman. This woman says nothing about her upbringing, and unfortunately I'm not in the state to ask. So what I'm going to do is to make assumptions based on my experience, how her childhood looked like, because it's not difficult at all, because most of the people I deal with had the same childhood issues and their consequences as an adult. So we like to think that our problem is unique, our family background is unique, but it's absolutely universal. It's a universal problem, only the characters are different and the causes and the effects are all the same, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because then it's very easy to actually trace back the upbringing of someone even without asking questions. So this woman grew up in an emotionally abandoned state. She went frozen emotionally as a child. She doesn't feel anything else for herself, just unworthiness. When a child freezes emotionally, it means that such things happened to her that she wasn't able to deal with them, and she unconsciously chose to freeze. This mostly means that those hurt her who were supposed to provide safety and a safe emotional space to be able to deal with her feelings. So imagine, when those people are cruel who are supposed to heal, that's a vicious circle. You are stuck and powerless. Either you run away or you freeze. So she chose the second one. In this mindset, she will never be able to heal because this frozen state is her comfort zone, even if it's actually very hurtful for her. And we are usually not aware of our conditioning as it's ingrained. So we are not aware. Let's select a couple of things for this first part, and I will come back for a second part another time. So she talks about addictions, and her addictions, she lists food addiction, codependency, love addiction, fantasy addiction, and validation, or addicted to get validation from other people. And I want to start here with food addiction, because food addiction and is very powerful. So people have no idea that addiction to food is actually goes back to small childhood. I have a beautiful friend. Let me choose a name for her. Let's go with Karen. Okay. So I have this beautiful friend, Karen, and she has a long story of addiction. And one day we built a timeline, we made the timeline of her addiction, and we tried to trace back how, where, and when it began. And she's turning 60 very soon, so please pay attention to the numbers. So we set up this timeline, and I asked her to please try to go back to the moment in your childhood, in your life where you say, for sure, this is the first moment I can say that I was addicted to something, anything. We were not talking about food. And she went into deep thinking, and after a little time, she said, I was 6 years old, listen, 6, and now she's turning 60. She said, I'm 6 years old and I'm desperately trying to connect to my parents, to my mom, but they didn't even recognize me as a child. They recognized me as a tool to help them with their things, raising my 2 younger siblings and helping them with daily chores and making sure that I was not under their feet and making sure that my 2 siblings were not under their feet. So I was a tool. I recognized myself stuffing candy into my mouth and cookies, because in this way, the emptiness I felt, the lack of connection I felt, I could fill it up. It gave me a strange, warm feeling, and I was caring about myself, and this is something very important. So 6 years old starts to feel herself, the void, the emptiness in herself, the lack of connection, what she missed from her parents or with her parents. She started filling up with candy, and then she said, I went on. Then I was stealing candy, or I was stealing money for candy. She was 6 years old. Why I'm emphasizing this all over again? Because it's very age appropriate. So I would say it 100% sure, guys, that everyone who is addicted to food is basically the sign that the addiction started at a very young age, because eating food, candy and cookie and stuff like that is very age appropriate for a 6-year-old. So she went on, just to go back to Karen, to my friend, she went on and then she developed different kinds of addictions. So she moved from eating candy to boys and weed and drinking, and so, but food is very age appropriate for a 6-year-old. So she started with this. She started her list, this woman, with food. So it means to me that her addiction is started at a very early age. So that means that she was missing something from a very, very early age. Then she says codependency and validation. I would bring it under the same roof, I'm telling you, because in this case, it means that she needs someone, because a food addiction you can carry out on your own, but for codependency and validation addiction, you need someone else around you. Validation, it means that she was not validated, her existence was not validated, so she couldn't connect with her parents, and then came the food connection or food addiction, obviously. And the codependency is that she was lonely. She was lonely as a child. She was not caught. She was not supported. She wasn't cared for. So that's why she needs someone who can take the responsibility for her and the choices what she doesn't dare to make. And then comes the fantasy addiction, which is also very, very important, because it starts again in childhood. So children of abuse or children of families where they are abused or they experience abuse, or physical or emotional or verbal, it doesn't matter. Those children tend to build a fantasy land for themselves because that's a sure place where they are in charge, they are in control. And in this fantasy land, actually, they feel safe. And this is their retreat. And if you have Fantasyland as an adult, it means actually that you have still not finished your healing, because instead of engaging with your healing, you still go back to Fantasyland. And then it means that you are driving, but your mind is somewhere else. Or I don't know, you are trying to study focus problems, and she mentions it later that in the letter that she cannot focus. Obviously, she cannot focus because she tends to slip away into Fantasyland. And so in Fantasyland, everything is safe, everything is under control, and if you still slip into Fantasyland very often as an adult, then you might want to look for someone who can help you. All these addictions, I mean food and Fantasyland, these are actually very strong signs of this person and my friend Karen, very strong signs of saving themselves. So a child can easily choose that, okay, my parent doesn't care about me, so I just go into my room and lock myself up, or just watch TV, or nowadays they just escape into gaming and computer life. But 60 years ago, when my friend was young or small, 60, 55, it was not possible. And the only way she could really comfort herself, she could really give herself a little love, a little affection, a little compassion, was to stuff herself. And the same thing is Fantasyland, is exactly the same thing. So basically, when kids stuff themselves or slip into Fantasyland, it's a very strong sign of self-compassion. This woman says that I have no idea what self-compassion is, and I don't know how to heal because I just can't develop that. I'm not in the state to go one-on-one with this woman. I would really love to, because she is really the type of person I like to work with, because she is exactly listing the things I'm an expert in. I would, next to these things, I would be really interested in her self-talk. I don't even know if she's aware of her self-talk, the voice in her head, but I can imagine that very nasty. So these addictions, just to go back a little to these addictions, the food addiction and the Fantasyland, they are statements, very strong statements that the child, age-appropriate, in an age-appropriate way, try to save herself, try to comfort herself and give herself all the things that she didn't get, to fill in the void, fill in the emptiness they experience from the part of their parents. So we go on with the letter next time, because there are a lot of things in this letter, and it's obvious that the upbringing of this woman was very, very neglecting and dysfunctional. This brings me home, actually. I was not addicted to food. I don't know what I was addicted to. I started smoking at the age of 14, so I also engaged with addictions very early in my life. I see a lot of patterns here, what I had also as a child, and what other people in my area or in my environment also experience, children. So as I'm telling you that this situation is not unique, it's very universal, only the characters are different, the family members. So have a lovely time. I come back with part 2, and see you then. Bye bye.